Hey everybody, welcome back to my workshop for another flea market finds or machinist tool pick. This is a machinist tool pick from a machine shop that had been closed for a while and had been selling stuff on Marketplace for quite some time. And I went there on March 22nd and I dropped about everything that you're going to see in this video here totaled 650. And then I ended up actually going back later and buying a few more things like later in the month. But without further ado, let's take a look at a couple of the items right here. The first of which I was kind of hesitant to pony up the money for it. I think this ended up being like 150 of this deal was right here or close to it. Or at least I think 150 was what they started with the asking price, but then when I bundled it with everything else, may have got it for a little less. But what this is this is a compound sine magnetic chuck for grinding. So this is in pretty rough shape, but the magnet still works really well. So this particular one is a Magnalock. So the way this works is you would mount this on your surface grinder, and then if you had a part that you wanted to surface grind and you wanted to do a compound angle on it, all you would do is place it on here, flip this lever. Now the magnet's on, it's quite strong. And then just like a regular sine plate, you have the ability to tilt this up. So this is your first sine contact point here, the cylinder, and this precision flat underneath here. So you could put a gauge block under here and set that first angle, but then it also has the ability to tilt this way. So if you simultaneously tilt the two, you can do a compound angle. You can buy these in Suburban Tool or Taft Pierce, and they're extremely expensive. I mean, like, close to $3,000 for a new one. This one's in pretty rough shape. So I'm going to give somebody a deal on this, I'm sure. Or, I don't know, I may end up keeping it. I have a Suburban sine chuck, but it's not a compound one. So this is one extra layer of versatility that I may or may not want. Some of the things I bought, I was actually kind of surprised to see that they were still there, because I know that this sale had been going on for months, and that quite a few people had come through. And I would have thought this place would have been picked pretty clean, but this was still there. I thought this was really cool. It's got this really nice, it's not a dovetail, but this like bead box style joinery. And what's in here is the remnants of a gauge block accessory set, but not just any old gauge block accessory set. So let's start with this. This is the tag they had on it. Surface height gauge incomplete set, $25. And I think when I pulled it all in, I got this for $20. Either that or I just paid the $25 because I just thought it was a steal at that. Some of you may watch Mr. Pete, aka Tubalcane, his channel. I think a while back he did a video on these, explain what they are and how they work. But essentially you use this with your gauge blocks. So this looks like a regular surface gauge base or height gauge base for on a surface plate, right? So that's exactly what it is. Then you have the ability to use this in conjunction with this, and stacks of gauge blocks in here, and then one of these specialty blocks on the top to turn this into a like really high precision height gauge. So, do I want a scriber tip on there like that one? Or do I want the ability to, that's probably a scriber tip. Or do I want to be able to have the ability to touch off to the inside of a large hole or surface? So it's obviously incomplete because this is supposed to be a shorter one of these here, and it looks like maybe even a smaller one here. There are a couple of mysteries in this set. I'm not familiar with exactly what the purpose of these are. They almost look like they're a pair of parallels, but they're a little bit convex on this side, and they're flat on this side. And then there's these deals here. And the real mystery to me are these two devices here. These are two almost like tri-cornered, I mean, they look like reamers. As a matter of fact, I had one of these a while back and I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a reamer. This obviously is not supposed to be a reamer because it came in this case, this fitted case. It belongs in here. Very sharp. All right, so if anybody knows what these are for, I'd love to know. So here's the thing that's really cool about this set. Check out the name. Ford. Now, Ford did not make gauge block sets. What Ford did is Ford was so impressed by Johansson's gauge blocks that he got the license from Johansson to sell the Johansson gauge blocks in the U.S. under the Ford name. So these are actually Johansson, aka Joe blocks, or that's what this accessory set is for a set of Johansson blocks. In fact, right here there's actually a sticker that talks about, it shows the inspected, and it's got the Ford Motor Corporation, but then it says Ford Motor Corporation Johansson Division. Then there's a serial number, standard set number 47, and then purchased March 18th, 1947. It actually says metric here too. That's interesting. I wonder what makes this a metric set. So a while back on a pick that I don't even remember anymore where I picked this from, I snagged this. So this is a actual Johansson set. So these actually say C.E. Johansson because his name was Carl E. Johansson. And in this set is the shorter holder. This is exactly how I found this, with the blocks that are missing and these pieces missing and the hinged. This guy must have had this in a drawer that he needed to close and it was a little too tall, or he just wanted to be able to get to it more quickly. I don't know, but the lid's long gone. I mean, I could literally take, well, actually that's not even the same size as that one. There's another size there. Well, anyways, I got the beginnings of something going on here. Remains to be seen what I'm going to do with this. But for 25 bucks, I couldn't leave that there. And it was also, all of this stuff was laid out across the table and on some shelves. This I grabbed because it was only like 5 or 10 bucks, and it's got some damage here, a big chunk taken out of it, but this might be a compound off of a South Bend lathe. And if somebody's missing their compound or has one that's broken even worse than this might still be worth a few bucks to them. This will be a good eBay piece. My weakness for these interesting drill organizers continues. I have one just like this now, probably the same exact manufacturer as this. This is like a cast metal. So I haven't spotted the maker on this one yet, but what's interesting is that this has a little Lazy Susan type of base on it that my other one doesn't have, and I suspect that if I go look at my other one, I bet you it used to have one on it and somebody took it off, or it broke off. It's a transfer punch set, missing several punches. Here, this is marked small drill sharpening kit, and turns out that's exactly what's in here. It's a very specific particular manufacturer. Never seen one like this before. It's got a U.S. patent number on it. And if it weren't for this instruction sheet being in there, I couldn't even begin to tell you exactly whether or not all the pieces are here and it's how to use it. So if we open this up, it'll probably have the maker's name. So this is kind of a riot. This entire instruction sheet has a serial number on it up the top, unit number 2. Okay. No manufacturer's name anywhere. How do you like them apples? Maybe it's on the other side of this. Ah, so it's a true point. So this is for really small drill bits. You know what's kind of neat is that this looks like, to me, that's a Starrett That's a Starrett pin vise that's in there. And that's what looks like is in the photograph too. So I guess by design, that's how that's supposed to work. I just checked it on eBay. Several sellers even list this as a Starrett True Point drill sharpener. I think because they're just spotting the Starrett name on that. Like 3 of these have sold on eBay for almost $50. But in the picture, they show... Oh yeah, alright. They show all these little tiny bushings. So it looks like it might be missing a couple. Huh. Alright. I think that's going to also probably have to be an eBay item. Here's a General Hardware number 15 drill index. And here's a Starrett number 187 and a 196. Here's a knockoff by the looks of it, Indicol. And then somebody put almost like a little scriber in there. And you know what? I just realized. I think that's a transfer punch. I think it's a really small size transfer punch. It is a transfer punch. It's from a different set that had longer backs to it. This says K holder on it. But what this is this is a scraper, or almost like a deburr tool. It's a style I'm not familiar with. It's a very sharp, probably carbide, but I could feel like dragging across here. Boy, that looks like that would do some damage. These you don't come across very often. This is a Starrett number 45. Unfortunately, it's engraved. And then this is designed so you can move this to this location here. I don't even remember what Starrett calls this. Oh, it is a depth gauge. Vintage Starrett depth gauge. Probably still bring about 10 or 15 bucks. These are just a couple of boring bars. High-speed steel, I believe. Yeah. This actually is a nicer boring bar. Don't know yet whether or not I'm going to be able to find inserts for it. It's TRW. Kind of a beefy guy. I've got so many obsolete inserts, just boxes and boxes of them. I'm sure I can find something that would probably work on here okay. Like to think so. This little box, I'm not actually sure what this was for originally. If there's anything to indicate, no. But what's in here is a bunch of replacement Lixie heads. Genuine Lixies. Always handy. I like my Lixie hammers. Here's a little Starrett indicator. It's got 4 holes drilled and tapped into the back. So this was mounted on something, I don't know what. But it's good those holes are there because you can just like squirt coolant right in there or... Speaking of indicators, I'm kind of a sucker for these unusual oversized guys. So this was on a stand. He actually gave me the stand. When we were talking about money, I told him, I said, I don't even care about the stand. So let me show you this elaborate POS. So this, sitting there on the bench with this, has this feature. Oops. How many indicators do this? So, you know, the amount of work in this stand is actually kind of surprising. They have these spacers here, okay, which are, I don't know what they're made out of, rubber, I think. So they're almost like shock absorbers. And then, I mean, the indicator is just a metric 0.01 millimeter indicator that works flawlessly. These bushings that ride on these posts, actually down inside, they have ball bearings, little tiny ball bearings in a linear arrangement there. So this is really something else what they did here. To me, it seems like this whole head right here came off of like a comparator stand or something else, and they repurposed it for this. I don't know. It does say on this part right here, it does say Strasbaugh model 18AJ-50 plus. And there's a serial number 89-7-75. So maybe this is from 1975. model 18AJ-50. Then there was this Acme thread gauge for $5. Looks like an MSC tool catalog type of thing, or Travers Tools. Does say made in the USA on it, which is nice. It's actually in pretty nice shape. It's a satin finish one. Might be better than the one I have now. I might have to swap mine out. Then there was this little pouch with this stuff in it here, and if that sheet right there wasn't with this, I would have no idea what this was. But as luck would have it, I probably could have looked it up. But it says M. Marsil of Springfield, Massachusetts, and there's a patent number on there. And then it's kind of dirty, but again, it's got that name, M. Marsil, M-A-R-C-I-L, on here, Springfield, Massachusetts. But what this is, original direct reading universal height gauge attachment. So you can see it in use there on a height gauge with a last word indicator. And there's the whole little assembly right there. And it appears to all be there complete. All right. Then there was this pile of Starrett adjustable parallels with this tag that said adjustable parallel set, 4-box, $5. So that was a no-brainer to take that for $5. I don't know how that was still sitting there, but we got 1, 2, 3. This box is for a telescopic inside gauge set, telescopic inside gauge, B size. And then we got 3 more here, 4, 5, and 6. But I happen to know that I have, sitting right nearby, I have a 6-piece adjustable parallel set in a vinyl pouch, Starrett, that is missing the 2 smallest sizes. So I think they're right here. I think it's missing A and B, which is what these 2 are. So I'll be able to make that, I will be able to make that set whole again. Here's some more dusty treasures. Here is a quite a large mandrel for turning something between centers, or for holding something between centers, really. So there's several different uses for this. Traditionally they're more this size here, which is what this set is right here that I got from this pick. So I don't know, it looks like maybe that's the complete set maybe, and then these are just some extra odd ones, and then this large one here. So I guess I should explain these in case you don't know what these are. These have a slight taper to them, so that a part like a gear blank could be pressed onto here in an arbor press. And then this has these little concave holes on each end that then allow you to put this between centers, like on a dividing head, for instance, so that you can cut the teeth on the gear. That would be like one example of what you can do with these. Also, like if you want to do some turning operations on the lathe on like a pulley or something like that, again, you would use one of these between centers. There's a flat spot on one side here, so you can put a lathe dog on here to drive it, and then you would just have a live center going to the end here, or a dead center with high pressure grease on it if you're old school. Then there was this fixture sitting there I should have just ran away from, but couldn't resist. It's already set up to sit right in the T slot on a grinder or a mill, and essentially all it is it's got a 5C collet holder in it, and you can loosen this and you can set this to any angle you want. And this is the draw nut for the 5C collet to thread into. So I happen to have a 5C collet right here, so I will demonstrate now. And of course, if this wasn't if this was already tilted up so I could get to the back of it, it would be a lot easier to do this. Alright, so that hadn't moved in a while, but now it's moving, so you get the idea. A couple of oiling holes here So now, when I get to the back of it, I can thread on the closer. All right. So we would have our part in here, draw that closed, and then we can now tilt this to whatever angle we want in reference to the table. Kind of a handy thing. And also, turns out, just realizing now, we can apparently index this. So there's got to be a way to unlock. Oh yeah, okay. So if I were to loosen this other Allen key right here, this would then be able to rotate, and there must be somewhere on here, there's probably a line that's the reference mark. So I don't know what I'm going to end up doing with that. A couple more archaic pieces here. This is something that clearly came from an industrial auction. It's got one of these classic lot number, buyer number stickers that they use at these industrial auctions. So who knows how many hands this thing's gone through. What's in here is an early Brown and Sharp Trammel set. So it's kind of a nice set back in its day. It's got quite a bit of surface rust that got to it. All of these pieces are going to have to be taken apart, well cleaned, and put back together before it really isn't nice again. And I just don't have the time to do it. So hopefully we'll find somebody who wants to buy this cheap and send it down the road. This, on the other hand, is a little bit more interesting. This is a Brown and Sharp cowl extender. So it actually shows it being used right here. So that's your caliper, dial caliper or digital caliper. Okay. And there's actually one still mounted on here. It is a Enco, cheap brand one, but it's mounted on here so we can see how this basically is supposed to work. So this happens to be a 12-inch one that's on here, right? But what we've got is we've got a pin here and we've got a pin here. So now I can take a measurements between these two pins using this 12-inch dial caliper that actually the pins can go much further apart this way. And that's the dilly behind that one.